So, welcome.
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the Ultrarunner Meets Monk podcast.
Meets a monk or meets monk?
Meets Monk.
Meets monk. I'm not the monk. You're the monk.
Damn straight.
Um,
So I wrote some questions down just to get us started.
that's good because there's nothing that's coming to me to say.
So your third ultramarathon is coming up very soon, right?
Yeah, in 2 weeks on Saturday.
So what's different this time compared to your very first one?
Well, the external difference is that it's 38 miles rather than 50,
Easy.
which is nothing. But one of the biggest differences, actually, which is for discussion, is so the last one I did in September was 50 miles round Snowdonia, and probably like a month before it, it's all I could think about. I remember sending you WhatsApp voice messages like, how do I stop thinking about it? And I was just like so consumed. I was so excited but so exhausted that I was like, I felt like I was just like a puppy that was just going to explode of excitement. But also nerves, but to the point where like, I just couldn't sleep. I was so excited, and like it was exhausting. Anyway, this one is in 2 weeks' time. I've not thought about it at all, and like I realised yesterday, oh, I actually need to like do some stuff, like plan accommodation, that kind of stuff. But it's just not really been on my mind.
Cool.
Because I don't know, I think I'm just getting better at just being here and now. But it almost feels like it's not that there's not any. Obviously, there's a big difference in that it's now my third one, not my second one, so I've got more experience and it's slightly less distance. But I think the main thing is that I'm just a lot more present, and I'm not like latching on to the excitement of the future to get me going. It's like I was speaking to my friend the other day, and we were talking about like visions for the future and like where you want your life to be and where you want it to go, and what is your dream. And I couldn't really, like, normally that would be like a wow, like I could explode with all these things that I want to do, and all them things are still there, and the contribution I want to make to the earth and to people and to that's still a huge thing. But I just feel way less like I'm going to explode from excitement, and but also with that comes worry and nerves. And I don't know what's happening to me, to be honest. But that's the main difference with at least as far as I'm aware. There's a difference in the external stuff and the location, it's in the lakes, but the main difference is just that I've not really thought about it.
Yeah.
And I might in a week's time, but I don't feel the need to obsess about it to make me feel really happy.
Because you wrote a beautiful article after your last one, and I think the main line was "Be where your feet are." Be where your feet,
Be where your feet are, yeah.
So would you say that's one of the biggest lessons that ultra running's given you? Or what are the biggest lessons that?
I think so, but I think it was an indirect lesson, and it was facilitated by learning ascension and by learning the art of being present. And it was almost like ultra running was a way to express that and to kind of put it into practice. But it's funny because although that was the main realisation, like when I did that 50 miler, and every time I could hear my brain saying like, we're at mile 10, I've got 40 more miles to go, 13 hours left. That's like explosions in your head. Like, I can't do that.
Too far, too gone.
Yeah, and then like, how do I feel? How am I going to keep going? All the blah blah in your head. Anytime I noticed that, I was just like, be where your feet are. And it was almost just like that anchor point of like, almost like making everything that wasn't right now indifferent. Like, nothing else mattered. And I learned that when I kind of caught myself drifting along thought streams, I then started suffering. It was really hard.
Yeah.
But I noticed that when I wasn't, and when I was actually just kind of just running, not really doing much else, not resisting anything, not arguing about how much pain I'm in, how tired I am, etc., that it was fine. Because I wasn't projecting into the future.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that although I could do that on the day, I couldn't do that prior. Like in day-to-day life.
Sure.
But since then, that's been kind of the biggest transition that, like, because it's very easy to follow them thought streams. It's like, it's addictive to do that, and I definitely feel pulled to do it all the time. But it's like, I was thinking the other day, like, if you don't do it now, then you never do it. So, like, for example, like, I was running the other day and I was thinking about well, I don't think I was thinking about anything. Anyway, I was running the other day and I was thinking about something, and I can't remember what I was thinking about. I remember I noticed, oh, I'm not present right now. I was like, yeah, but this is quite an interesting, let's see where this goes. This is quite a, cool thing. And I remember just like, nah, back here. Because if I don't do that now, then I don't do it. And it's like, it's always just practice it right now, then eventually that leads to, when I'm running, do it then.
Yeah.
But don't be like, oh, I can be present when I'm running, so I'll just do it when I'm running, but in the rest of my life, that was quite a big shift.
Because I was because people who are listening to this going, well, that's fine, because you just have one job. Is one step until you get to the end. Right? In my life, I've got to look after the kids, I've got to go to work, I've got to pay the bills, I've got to order Christmas presents. How does that transfer from just one thing, one goal, to life where it has 16 different goals? How does that work for you? Because I know how it works for me. But
well, I think some things seem more in your face.
Yeah.
Some things seem less in your face, and I think when it comes to running or exercise or anything where you're just doing one thing, for most people, because you're just doing one thing at a time, it's kind of like there, like it's not too in your face, and so you can. It's a bit easier to be present because it's there. But when you are in day-to-day life, and there's like 10,000 of them, it's harder to do that. But I think it's only harder to do it because we're not used to doing it. Because, like, I was sending you a voice message about Overwhelm, and like I've always been very overwhelmed with everything. Just like, because there's so much stuff I want to do in every domain of that. I want to do it all right now, and when I can't, it's like either there's something wrong, or I need to find a solution to it, or it's just like panic stations because I can't do it all right now. And I've managed my time, scheduled my tasks, done read every productivity time management book ever, and I'm still overwhelmed. And a huge shift for me has been transferring that into work and into life. Of like, overwhelm is just a state of mind, and that's a really, like, I've heard people say it before, and it's like, it's really annoying because it's like, well, great,
thank you.
Thank you. But like, all it is that you're thinking about more than one thing at a time, and you're doing something right now, and you're thinking about the next thing. And again, conceptually that's cool to understand, but it's a different thing to just be able to do that one thing. But I think for me it's been recognising, because you can sit down and you can meditate and you can have, right, here's my 20 minutes a day, done. But if you can't transfer any of that into the rest of life,
what's the point?
For me, what's the point? So I think a huge thing for me has been, okay, if I can do that in that period of time, then let's transfer this into right now and just this one thing, and just an awareness of watching my mind go off on, oh, I need to do this thing, or about this thing. And then, like, when I was driving here, actually, I just finished editing a video, and I noticed my normal kind of thought stream when I'm driving to work after being at home, doing work from home, is analysing and judging what I'd just been doing and how it didn't quite go as it should, and how I didn't quite finish that other thing I had to do. And I was driving here and I was like, wow. Like, no wonder I felt and have felt forever so overwhelmed, because your mind doesn't stop. And I know that when it comes to maybe the more personal thoughts and the more memories and the more kind of, you know, in your face stuff that we don't really talk about. But when it comes to this day-to-day stuff, there's like that low-level feeling of like, that's just because it's just, you're trying to do 10,000 things.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of like, running has become a form of expression for that, of like, I mean, I love being outside, and I think being in nature helps you to do that as well.
Yeah.
But I think I've always kind of told myself that, kind of what you just said there, of, well, it's great when you're there, but like life's too busy, actually, I can't do that. But it fundamentally really is a choice, and I think that's not a, you know, it's a bold thing to say, but I think just from my own experience, it seems to just be a choice, and it's in the moment. To recognise it is hard in itself, but to not perpetuate it is even harder, because I think I've spent my whole life thinking and thinking about thinking and trying to think more about something, and to not do that is, it's simple, but it feels like there's a bit of like a, and I think you referred to it as like walking on very thin ice. Was it that? Or like
the razor's edge.
Razor's edge, yeah.
Or thin ice.
Or thin ice, yeah. So yeah, I think practice.
Well, we've been practicing one way for decades. So people turn up to meditation and go, oh, I can't do it. And I was like, come on, it's been what, a day, a week?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the payoff to me is immediate, from being really present. Like my kids show me this all the time. Just when I was thinking the other day, I was doing the dishes and my kids were, hey Dad, come and do this with me, come and colour in. And I'm like, I'm just doing the dishes because I want to get these done, and then I can play with you. I was like, hang on, May's already 5. It seems like 5 minutes since she was born. She's going to be married and gone, and I'll still be doing the dishes. You know?
Yeah.
That whole thing of I'm trying to get to the end of my to-do list, and then I'll stop and play, and then I'll stop and be present. It just doesn't. My to-do list is endless, you know. So.
And yeah, and I think when we are so stressed, and when that, you know, you talk about that bathtub, when that bathtub, that bucket of your capacity is full to the brim, I think we really struggle to, I know I do, to almost differentiate between what's urgent and what's not urgent. Like when you're stressed and you've got a kid there and like these dishes need to be done right now, and for someone to say to you, you know, that in that moment is like, because they need to be done right now. But I think when you can distance yourself from that and you have clarity, I think clarity, that's it. And I think it's being very clear on what truly is most important to you, or else I guess the important urgent thing, you're always sucked off into the void with the urgent, which is really easy to do. And I think the more that you, like we're saying, the more you practice that, the more you do the dishes and you ignore me, the more you do that.
Yeah.
The more you don't, the more you don't.
Yeah. It's true. Job done. I was just listening to, I told you about the Joe Rogan and Stephen Pressfield podcast. I don't know if you've checked it out, but Stephen Pressfield wrote a book called The War of Art, and his whole thing was about, you just got to really prioritize what you want to do. We all have a creative calling, and where creativity being, it might be being a personal trainer, it might be writing books, it might be being a best parent or the best connector in your community. You know, we all have skills that we really were born with and keep knocking on our door, so to speak. And he says really the invitation, the calling for a good life is to open that door and let these creative impulse come in, whatever it might be. And one way that you do this is just by A, acknowledging it, and B, sitting down and equals of doing the work. You just show up and you allow, or you invest yourself in this calling, whatever it might be. Otherwise, it kind of it'll screw up your life. it'll come back in various twisted ways, and you know, whatever. Almost like that beach ball under the water, it will shimmy out over here, as opposed to you allowing it to really pop up in all its beauty and clarity. I love that because, and I'm only saying it because they went on to talk about how there's this idea in life, you just keep getting to repeat the same life until you get it right. And for him, getting it right is opening that door to your creative impulse. It's to not allowing the doubts and the I can'ts and what will people think of me and all that stuff that goes on our heads to stop you in your mission. And he said, when I asked people about this, they said, "You mean I have to do this forever?" They freak out. It's horrendous, you know. And I think that's the idea of a stop point or heaven where I don't have to do anything is so alluring. You know, I'll just keep struggling until. And you know, the whole idea of karma, that if you don't get this right, you have to come back and do it again, just blows people's minds and freaks them out. It's like, no way, that's impossible. I don't want to do that. But I don't know. I was just thinking that why not live a good life now? You know? And for me, one of those things is being present, being as involved in the moment as you can, so you can allow the creative impulse of the moment and the life you were born to live to come through. And the urgent stuff, my to-do list, gets in the way of, you know, I've got to get to that, and then I can indulge myself in what I really want to do. But I think all the cultures, religions have talked about that, how we have a dharma, we have a calling, we have a purpose, we have a destiny, and really delaying it with the urgent stuff just leads to dissatisfaction and stress and suffering, and what the hell am I doing here? So I think it's an important thing, and if anyone's listening, is just begin by being present. Just really be in the same place as your body. Because I lived in one of the most, I don't know if I've told you this, but being in the most beautiful places in New Zealand, and many mornings when I was driving to work, I just didn't even see it. You know, I was driving alongside this lake with mountains on three sides. If it was anywhere near winter, it was capped with snow, and I was heading to the greatest job in the world, and yet I was totally gone, having imaginary conversations about the future. I'd seriously arrive at the car park and pull on the handbrake, and that's when I was like, oh, I've arrived. You know, I had no idea how many little grannies I'd run over or anything. I was completely missing in action. And I realised what a crime that was, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to sleepwalk through life. I didn't want to be mindless. So, yeah.
What is it that you think stops people from being present? Because I think, like, firstly, what's like, can you define like what it means to be present?
Yeah. Well, no. No.
What you think it is?
Well, I say be in the same place as your body.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, like be in your senses. I mean, thinking, when you're wrapped up in thinking in the past and the future, it's not very sensory. Do you know? It's not. If you're sitting here listening, it's not the sound going in our ears. It's not the feeling of the seat. It's not the warmth in this room because I've left the window shut. You know, it's not the light coming down. It's something more abstract, more cardboard. It's lacking a certain something. So being present is being in your senses. But there's something more than that, and I think that's why people do things like ultrarun and meditate, is they're looking for an altered state from the ordinary. They're looking for something elevated. I think that's maybe all those plant medicines, the ayahuasca and the LSD and the stuff is making a resurgence too, because people are like, I want something more. But there's being present, and then there's being filled with a sense of presence, and I used to call it centered. I knew when I was centered and really connected with a higher sense of self, and that is quite intangible but very noticeable. You know, I mean, exercise for me was a great way to that, because after a hard workout, running or swimming or whatever, all the urgent stuff were just, they weren't really clamoring. You know, it was obvious what my priorities were. It was not. I was content and at ease just to walk back to my house and eat a good breakfast. You know, that was the greatest thing in the world. Have a hot shower and a big breakfast. But yeah, it's difficult to define, I'd say, but easy to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was just going to say, your other question was why, but I think people think the future is going to be better than this moment. It's like something good is coming, and that is so exciting, or something terrible is going to happen, and that if I think about it enough, maybe I can delay it. Maybe I can work out how to prevent it. Maybe I can fix something so that my future moment will be nicer, easier, smoother. And the same deal with the past. You know, it's either nostalgia, dreaming about that free and easy time mopeding around the Greek island in the sun, you know, when you had no kids, or regret and shame for what had happened, did happen. You know, it's, and yet when we really do the things we love to do, we're so, the past and the future aren't as appealing at all. It's like, this is exciting. I never thought ordinary moments could be fulfilling, and they are. And all that happened was that I really got present to them, mindful of them. So, yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you, but...
No, I think I asked you a question. So something that I've come to realise, like I've... What's your laptop saying?
No photos.
Oh, why is it saying that? Oh, okay.
Still going.
Fine. Still going. Yeah, like I've read about being present, living a good life, all the stuff that comes with that. And to me, that comes with this sense of like, wow, you know, like you imagine that when you've hit that moment of being present, that it's like, does anybody know what's happening? This is amazing. But I can remember the other week, I went to the co-op to buy a sandwich. As you do. And I walked in, and there was something like, there was a slight mental discomfort. There was no reason for it. But I realised it was because I was questioning whether or not I was present.
Right.
Because basically I was just pretty still, and I was just walking. And then I remember thinking, oh, I'm not being... And then I recognised it, and I was like, hang on a minute. I was totally present, but my mind had the idea that I was lacking something. Like, to me, being present, from my experience of it, is just the lack of judgment about the experience. And that's been huge because of my expectation of what it is to, what it was to be present. It was this kind of like everything dances, it sings, you know, you're just in awe at life. When actually a lot of the times it's just a contentment without any judgment. And like that's a huge thing, because that's again like what you said there about finding nothing moments or small moments like enough. And that's and I think, you know, in the West, we're taught again. You're taught from such a young age that the future's going to be better, and I think that instills this idea that right now isn't enough, and actually that, like I'm only like 12, but for the majority of my life has been, since I've been conscious, it's been the future is good because of all these things I'm doing. The past was bad because of all these things. Never here. It was always, okay, if I've got some exciting event in 7 days' time, that's all I'm thinking about. and then I do it, and then I do it, experience it, and then okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I never thought there's anything wrong with that, but I thought that's what life was. I thought life was, you know, future projections, excitement, ambition, drive. Yeah. To me, that's all there is, and without that, there's nothing. And that's really important. But I think there's a big difference between mentally living in the future and mentally living in all that exciting stuff versus not. Yeah. And it seemed really backwards to me to almost not entertain all them thoughts, to like, well, I don't want to sit here and get really excited about what I'm doing in 8 days time and like think about it and like, wow, it's gonna be amazing, and when I'm having a bad moment, a down moment, a boring moment, I can think about that thing I'm doing. And you like just playing tennis with yourself and you just get thrown about. And that was a huge thing for me to realise, because that is where I have lived all my life, is so excited for the future, and if not excited, in absolute dread about the future. And just a big realisation that them two things come together. Like I've noticed just through Ascension, you know, the practice of it, that and being more aware of myself, that the more I latch onto that excitement, the more I then latch onto worry. Yeah. And it's like
same voice, right?
Exact same voice. And I can see it so clearly that if I've followed that train of thought, it's like, right, I know what's coming now. Yeah. Like, what if? And just this, and it's almost like it feels like let's say you've just eaten something great and you want more, and you have that slight moment of, oh, I could have more. Maybe your body gets a bit hot and your mouth salivates and you get like physiologically prepared to stuff your face. Then you have that moment of, actually, I don't want that. And then, oh yeah, but and you have that little moment. For me, I have a very, very similar experience with that as I do with thinking now. Like it feels like a desire. Like it feels like a drug. Like, oh, I could think about that.
You get, what are you talking?
Yeah, but like it stops you from being right here, and the only problem with right now is the judgment about why it's not right, and that's just thinking.
It's totally it. I thought it was going to be like an LSD trip too, like angels singing, fractals in the sky, just wild, in love with everybody, walking on water. And yet it seems, like you just said, that for me it's the absence of the critic, the evaluator, the comparator, the you're not good enough, that voice that we all carry in our heads, the absence of that is the ultimate in peace, the ultimate experience. It's the voice that says, hey, you're doing great, this is amazing, tomorrow, 7 days time, it's going to be sensational. It's the same voice, just with a different focus, is the voice that says you're an idiot, you're a failure. Why don't you just go hide in your bed? It's just like the same voice, and training one just means the other comes along for a ride. And it's, hey, you know, one of the highlights of my life was walking to a bakery on a Sunday morning, and it was almost like I never felt as good as I did in that minute. Just walking from my flat to get some croissants, and it was, man, I had no shame, nothing to hide, nothing to prove. Nothing mattered, and I was like, what is this? This is great. Because I realized, you know, I would, some of the painful moments in my life is I'd have this trip in 7 days time. I'm kayaking in 7 days time, and I'd get there and I would have built it up. I would be dreaming about it, visualizing it in my sleep, just because, you know, that's what you do. And I got there, and for some reason my body and my mind and my emotions and the river and the day just didn't connect, and I was having a crap day, and it would make me furious. I was so angry that my expectations weren't met. This hype in my own head was not coming through. And I was like, you know, who do I have to punch to make myself have a good time? And it was really down to my own expectations. I'd been building it up, and it, for whatever reason, it just didn't come through. So I disappointed myself, really. Yeah.
What brought you to the awareness that, well, if this was the process, that there was more to that? Like...
More to what?
More to life, I guess. if that was the kind of right, moment.
I think it was moments like that where the clouds metaphorically parted from the sun. Where it's like, oh, this is good. And I just seemed to be moments beyond my grabbing. I just couldn't plan for it or fight for it. It just happened sometimes. It was like, oh, wow. Yeah, so it was really, how do I have more of this? In combination with seeing how vicious my own head could be. And how do I have less of that? Because I might, like probably everybody on this planet, are brutal to themselves and brutal to the people around them, just through the follow-on from the voice in our head that we listen to. So, and I knew how loving and patient and direct as well. When I really didn't want to do something, sometimes a big fat no came out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh, where did that come from? But hurrah, I'm glad I said that. Versus those times where like, saying yes to try and please someone. And I saw it was both. It was both being pulled towards something I experienced and said, well, if I do that more, maybe it's bigger, better. And I certainly know leaving behind doubt and fear and anxieties and frustration is going to make life so much better as well. But I talked to a bunch of people about the power of being present, because almost like your brain is a little puppy dog. If you can't train your dog to focus on one thing, you never get anything done. You're sitting there, either bored or wishing you were somewhere else, or wishing it was going better, or wishing. And the ability to focus on one thing at a time is incredible in terms of getting things done. I saw one study ages ago. They had some sort of trackers, and I'm not sure how they worked it out, but they found that people were only actually mindful 48% of the time. So let's say half the day. And
that's quite a lot.
I'm surprised at that. I'm very surprised. But also, they looked at how satisfied they were at that moment, their satisfaction score. And mindfulness had a direct correlation with how satisfied they were. So they were just really absorbed in the task they were doing, and it was satisfying. And it was interesting because they said it had nothing to do with the task. It could have been ironing, which I dislike immensely, so I avoid it. But if they're mindfully doing something they don't enjoy, it's more satisfying than absent-mindedly doing something they do enjoy. That makes sense.
Interesting.
Mindfulness is the key to satisfaction, is basically what they're saying. Which impressed me no end, because that's been my experience too. But imagine if, the average person, 8-9 hour working day, if we spent more than half of that just staring out the metaphorical or actual office window going, oh, I wish I was somewhere else. How much more you could do, or how much more holidays you have. I don't know if our bosses would allow that, since I don't have one.
But no.
Yeah, I'll take more holidays. But yeah, it's not only pleasant, it's a very useful skill to be able to be attentive to one thing and not let your little puppy drag you off to the future or off to the past. So, yeah. Still running.
Still going.
It's amazing, this technology.
Does it work? I think that the wishing you were somewhere else than right now is huge, obviously. But I still have all that. I can just see it for what it is now, and step back from it. But I think gaining an awareness of it, it's just like pretty much every single moment where I'm not really, really immersed. Yeah. There's this kind of background thing of oh, you could be doing this, or I wish I was this place, and it's like, it's so obvious as to what a horrendous place that is to live, because you never, and like we don't need any more stories of men who build a big business, get to 60, think, finally, I'm going to sell this business, or women, I'm going to retire, I'm going to spend time with my family. And they turn around to their family, and their family say, I don't want to spend time with you, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's such a common understanding, at least in my eyes, within us humans in society, that like we know, like everybody knows the phrase, money doesn't make you happy, which can represent more things doesn't make you happy, more doesn't make you happy. We all can say that, and we all know that, but I think it's a very different thing to be able to do it and to be able to make that your life. But actually, I am going to be here and now, and I think it's really hard when you are in a world and around people and friends and life where that is the trajectory, because it's going on a different path to other people, and that can be very uncomfortable. Do you think that, like, because let's hypothesize, everybody knows that everybody knows that, like, deep down, that when they get that promotion, when they get married, when they buy the house, when they whatever people do, when they do that thing, deep down they know that they're not going to be completely fulfilled and happy. There's still going to be this element of what's next and not enough. And do you think it's that people actually really aren't aware of that, or that they are aware of it but they just don't know how to make it a reality?
I don't know. I would suggest they're not fully aware of how delaying someone's peace, delaying their life isn't a good strategy at all. I don't think it even involves necessarily. It's a mindset, right? It's I'll be happy when I've bought my house, when I've got my retirement fund, when my kids are married off, when and you can kind of want to have those things, but you've got to find happiness now. Because, both my mum and my mum-in-law both died pretty early, early in their 60s. And we just don't, and I've had a bunch of friends who've gone earlier than that, in 20s and 30s, and you just don't know how much time you have. And you can be so future-focused that I'll be happy when I tick off all these boxes. You forget that, dude, you've got to be happy now, because you've got to find some sort of fulfillment now, otherwise it may never arrive. You tick off all your boxes and you get there and your family goes, sorry, you're a dick. Or they've gone and you haven't even noticed. So, yeah.
How do you think, practically, how do you think people do be? How do you think people do be, if that works, do be happy now?
Well, I think it all comes back to being present. I think it comes back to making the most of each and every moment. And it's a nice thing to say, but that urgent to-do list takes over that. Got to get this done, and then I can make the most of the moment. I've got to suffer through this, and then I can be happy. It's the whole, it's even in our religions, I'll just work incredibly hard, and then I'll get my reward in heaven or paradise or wherever. The Buddhists have it too, to a certain extent. Just work incredibly hard, and then after several lifetimes you can be complete. It's insane, because it's all about becoming. It's all about the next thing. Man, you've got to smell the roses along the way. You got to, otherwise life might be a lot shorter than you think. Life will be a lot harder. So this is a question for you, because you wrote something about it recently, and there's a guy, Jocko Willink, right? And he wrote Discipline Equals Freedom. And I think you wrote something about it, didn't you? Maybe not.
Maybe.
Because I'm a big fan of routines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of, man, I know I feel good when I exercise, when I eat this much, and I find it incredibly easy for me for like time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, this is my time period, schedule. But, and that gives me so much more, a good foundation for my day. You know, I feel so good. If the rest of my day is awful, I just, having woken up and exercised and ascended and then had a good breakfast, I'm like, cool, I'm good to go. But you've heard that phrase, right? Discipline equals freedom. What's your take on it?
Yeah. I 100% agree, and I think yes, I did write about it.
Yeah.
I think we confuse. I think not yours and I, but the world's idea of discipline isn't helpful. I think to a lot of people, and my own old idea of discipline was forcefully struggling through life to do these things because I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
And I think that has a place for some things, because some things need to be done. But I think it truly sucks any joy out of anything.
Yeah.
Like, and I think there's a really fine line, because like, I think intuitively, when we're all free of stress, free of judgment, free of everything, we want to exercise, we want to eat well, we want to be nice to people, we want to work, we want to do all these things that we have to motivate ourselves to do.
Yeah.
But I think the only reason we really have to try and motivate ourselves, the majority of the time, is because we're so stressed.
Yeah.
And like, when you're full to the brim of stress from work, family, your own head, everything, the last thing you want to do is go and train or go and eat well. You want to do something that's immediately gratifying. So I think, again, it comes back to, I mean, to answer your question, I think, yeah, discipline 100% gives freedom, like you said, because or else you don't have them routines or structure, and then your mind's, you lose freedom of your mind, because then you're thinking about when to do it. Oh, I've not done that, but I forgot.
You're talking about stress. It kind of gets in there.
Yeah, it's gone.
But yeah, I didn't see it like that, because I don't think I require much motivation, because I know how good it is. But maybe there's just a momentum to all these habits that means I don't need to, or maybe there's just not an option. If I wake up, unless I'm feeling lousy, and then I'll have a quiet day. This is what I do.
And I think I feel the same as you do there, but I think that's down to, from my understanding, I think it's an expectation thing of, like, from all the people I've worked with, like, training wise, the majority of people have this idea that, like, you have these subcategories in the population. You have people who love working out, people who hate it. Oh, I'm just not that kind of person. I don't enjoy that. And I'm sure there is something to that. Like, you know, not everybody loves playing a guitar, but I think a big part of it is people think that if I want to work out, I need to feel like I want to work out, and that to enjoy working out, exercising, training, I need to have the same feeling as I do when I sit in a warm blanket on the sofa, and almost like it should be completely free of discomfort because I want to. Does that make sense? Like, like, I think we like Stephen Pressfield talks about resistance. We expect there to be no resistance, and whenever there is resistance, let's say to working out, for example, training. I don't say working out. I'm going to say training. When let's say, right, tomorrow morning I'm going to go and train, and you wake up feeling like you've died, and you just groggy. Oh, I don't really want to go and train. All of this, that's a lot of resistance in your face. I think how that often gets interpreted is, oh, I can't do that. Don't do it. But I think with anything that's hard, with anything that requires a level of discipline, a level of commitment. It's not that you need to get rid of that resistance. It's not that you always need to feel like you want to do it. It's that you kind of not push away. You rise above them feelings, and like you said, this is just what I do.
You just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we give too much power to our feelings sometimes. I think sometimes we don't give enough power to our feelings, but I think sometimes in this context we give them too much power of, I just don't really want to. And I think, of course, if you do, like, you know, when you go and swim in a very cold body of water, like when I went in this morning, I've not been in for a week, I was walking up to it and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And you take off my nice new dry robe.
Oh, it's cold out here. It's gonna be
it's just horrible. And then 1 foot in, and then you get in and your body starts, you know. But that entire lead up to doing it, to even just getting in the car, there is this big block of, not today.
Yeah.
I don't want to
turn around.
Yeah, but and I think it's funny because people who, let's say somebody who thinks that's absolutely wild, which, you know, like, wow, you're so crazy, you're a machine for doing that. I think that perception is only because they perceive you to not having any of that resistance. That it's kind of perceived that, okay, if you like swimming in cold water, that you wake up and you're like, yes, let's go and feel really horrible and uncomfortable. And then when you're walking up to the water, you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
You don't go running in, do you?
No, there's resistance. But for me, and this is again links back to ultra running, I think a big part of it is learning to sit with the resistance and not either resist the resistance or think that, oh, that's my sign of
don't do it.
And I think there's an argument in there of, okay, well then when do you listen to your body? But I think listening to your body and listening to your head are two very different things, because
true.
I think that, like, we always know intuitively deep down, we pretty much know what we need to do, what's good for us, but it's layered and layered and layered with shouldn'ts, expectations, blah blah, and
all that stress you talked about too,
and all that stress, and like, you'll know if you know, if when you are present, when you are reducing your stress, and you know, you can listen to your body, but you can't listen to your body when it's all in your head. And I think that's why people really struggle to, like, consistency is one of the, no photos. Why is it saying no photos?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, no.
That's still going?
Still going.
That's cool.
Like, I think consistency is one of the most wanted thing. Like, I'm just, and I see it so much in my work, and used to see it a lot with myself, and still see it myself in some things, of like, I'm just not consistent. How do I be more consistent? How do I? And I think it's because we expect consistency with anything to require feelings of wanting all the time. But to me, I've learnt that consistency isn't that I feel the same consistently, it's that I do the same consistently, but that when I am present, when I am free of all them things, that I can say, actually, not today. But it's from a place of, I don't want to do that today.
Genuine,
rather than, no, not today, because this and this. It's just I don't want to do it. And I think there's a huge distinction there. One of them is your true feeling, and the other is fear, doubt.
That's very cool. I love that. It's just interesting because, like, with, what do you call it, working out? Not working out, exercise, training. I used to think it wasn't worthwhile unless I was sore the next day. Do you know, it's a waste of time. And that was quite a daunting idea, because it's like, punishment equals worthwhile. And I've found recently that you know, just going for a good walk out in the forest is incredible. Right? Like, A, it's not hard work, and B, I come back going, man, I felt so good, and there's no pain and suffering in it. You know, it's just a really nice walk, breathing a little harder, and I wonder if people think that, especially maybe in meditation as well, if they don't know how to do it properly, is it's just going to be agony. And the fact is, jumping in the cold water is a great example. Like, but I saw a physio recently, and she hasn't seen me for before I've been consistently cold water swimming, and she said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And that's the only thing that I've done differently is more cold water swimming. Maybe a little bit more sauna, but I love sauna. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I felt good afterwards, because and so that was the momentum. That's what made me overcome that resistance. And B, now she said that, it's like, right, there's more kind of motivation just to ignore that voice of don't get in, there's ice on my. But that's the reason I meditate too. I could easily sit at night and let's just flick on the TV. That would be extremely pleasant. But I know I'm going to be such a better person afterwards. And it seems that slight tug of war is, do I just go with pleasant or do I go with even better? And maybe that's what discipline equals freedom is even better. But yeah, that whole listening to your body thing is very interesting, because I would have run roughshod over that many years ago, and now it's kind of listening a little more and going, no, I think today is a walk day rather than and doing squats with my kettlebells or whatever. But interestingly too, with my ascension practice, it is just, I know regardless of where I am or what I'm doing, I'm just going to be so much nicer on the other side of things. And that stress levels, whatever I've built up in the days, will be decreased, and I'll just be in a much better place. So maybe that's just the key, is getting people started so they can see the results.
And I think that's the importance of trust. And I think
especially early on, right?
Yeah, because initially doing anything, meditation, training, running, whatever, you don't really get much out of it. Maybe you do, but I think you don't get out of it what you expect to in that little weird interim period. And I think in that initial period, like the first time you go cold water swimming, the first month, 2 months, 3 months of meditating, whatever it is, there is a lot of resistance, and there's a lot of, the bang doesn't quite seem worth the buck. Like, you sacrifice a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of like mental willpower initially, and like you said, you just kind of hurt a bit. But I think a big part of it is in that initial period having the commitment of like, right, regardless of what happens, I'm just going to give this a go. But I don't think we're very good at that, because there's 10,000 different things to give a go, and so we never truly stick with one thing. But I think if you can stick with one thing, genuinely give it a shot, see how you feel about it, because with training, you first enter a gym, everything really hurts. Like, how do people enjoy this? Like, because it's just painful. But the more you do it, and I don't know how like scientifically true this is, but this is what I say. Like, and I have experienced. It's almost like your brain sets a new threshold for pain. So it's like, you came into the gym the first day, you did some split squats, and your brain was like, we're gonna die, this is awful, never come back. 3 months later, your brain's still doing that, but it's very quiet, and you can do a bit more, and it's almost like your reaction to it freaks out a bit less, and you can continue. But I think there is that interim period of trusting that it's gonna give it the time and the space, and it will transpire into being great. But I think, it probably just comes down to maybe a lacking of ability to, not lacking of ability, but like, we want to do things and then get things straight back. It's that kind of, phones are probably to blame for it, food is probably to blame for it, and stress. But I think it feels very like people who want to get in shape, gain strength, lose fat, whatever it is, because they've been advertised this idea that, join my 3-week fat loss program and you lose half your body weight in 3 weeks, or it's been in the media for hundreds of years, a long time, that you can do this one thing now and you get the results straight away. And I think there's always this kind of background level in your head of, this is too, I'm not seeing anything. And like the amount of clients I've worked with where, like, I had one lady recently called Anne who Like she's lost like 9 kilos in the last like 3 months or something.
Wow.
Like incredible. And every week since like the start of the 3 months, Mia, this isn't working.
Yeah.
This isn't happening fast enough. And we'd have a bit of joke about it. And I'd say, just another week, just one more week.
Yeah.
And then like 2 weeks ago, she was like,
it's working.
It's working. And it was really funny because it was like what she's always done and what most people always do is 1 week, 2 week, whatever it is, you know, whatever thing you're trying to get better at, you just pull out because you're like, not worth it. But I think it's that I don't think we trust things enough.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think also a big thing for like running's a great example. Like last few weeks I've been driving to the lakes and running around the lakes as training for this ultra, and get up at 4:30 on a Saturday, arrive at 6:30. You're in a nice warm car, you know, it's November, it's dark outside, you pull up, you're in shorts and a long sleeve top, you need to get out and you need to go and run for 4.5 hours. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. There's a huge resistance there, a huge like, just stay in here. And you get out and you're a bit uncomfortable, you're a bit cold, you're a bit tired and stiff, and then you start running. First half an hour is just a bit like, ow, this is, But what you can really do there is, within that first half an hour, is you can say, nope, this is too hard, this is horrible, stop.
Yeah.
When you continue, flow, ease, smoothness. Yeah. But you have to, I think, and for me anyway, I know that I need to go with a lot of things through that initial period of like just getting punched in the face. Yeah. But I trust that I only trust that it doesn't continue punching me in the face because I've experienced it, but that you just give it a chance. And I think you'll never truly see what you can gain from anything if you don't give it a chance, and that's a really obvious thing to say. But I think it's a really obvious thing not to do.
I was just thinking, you know, as well as the kind of like the physical discomfort, there's the sort of the mental, emotional, cultural discomfort. So if you're walking into a gym for the first time, or walking in next door to an Ascension course for the first time, I mean, it takes a lot, I think, for someone just to sign up and go, I'm going to turn up with a bunch of weirdos. You know, what's it going to be like? Yeah. Who are these people? Especially with all the online stuff that you can do now. To actually show up in person is a big deal. And, you know, I remember back in the day trying out some martial arts classes, and some places you walk in and it was almost like, no, this is just not the right place for me. You know? And you know, walking into gyms and just don't knowing the language, and usually those guys bruting out the corner and gritting, and you know, and you're like, what do I do with this thing? I know you're supposed to lift it up and put it down, but like the thing, my wife came home from your classes just going, wow, you know, buzzing because of the culture, because she just fitted in. I think that's a big thing, is just not knowing, again, who I am and who they are and how I'm going to, you know, they're all going to be a bunch of weirdos and brutes, and I think that's important too. But yeah, just keep going is a big thing. I've 3 times I've told you this before, 3 times I've heard people say, do you know, I'm not ready, especially in this sort of first couple month period where the momentum is building. And they're going, you know, I'm not really sure why I'm doing this. I think it's a waste of time, and da. And they were all 3 guys actually, their wives, every time said, look, if you stop doing this, I'm going to divorce you. So there's, like your friend losing weight, if we just don't measure or can't measure or don't see it or something, it's a good thing. Good thing to keep going. To give it a shot until you really know for sure. You know?
I think also you can always tell when it's not right.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't, but I think, like, you know, if you walk into a martial arts gym, sometimes things just aren't, you know. I think that's the hard differentiation, is like, when I was writing the other day, it's what I was talking about, in that, like, okay, if the rule of thumb then is I'm feeling resistance, this is hard, if that is my kind of magnetic north to I'm going to do it, where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
You know, like, I find a lot of things hard, I don't want to do a lot of things. Does that mean I have to do everything?
Yeah.
But I think there's a really big distinction of when you're present, you know what's not right. You know, like I don't want to jump out of an aeroplane. I'm terrified of doing it, but I also really have no desire to throw myself out of an aeroplane. Yeah.
I'm with you. Because I used to think, because I'm the same, I don't want to. I actually quit a bungee jump. Me and my sister went in New Zealand, and she was maybe 15 at the time, and I was 19 or something. She went first. She was just piled off it, and I'm like, and I was good until the moment they strapped the little rubber band, and then they started going, "Come on, you big pussy," and I'm like, that just kind of. A, I was terrified, and B, I didn't want to be a part of that.
No.
And so I just quit. I was like, nah, untie me, I'm done. You know. But yeah, I was only doing it because I thought I should. You know, that was a barrier that I needed to push through. And jumping out of airplanes, I'm the same deal. But now I'm so content not jumping out of airplanes or doing bungee jumps. I'm just like, no, thank you. But I think you're so right too. But you know, in ancient Greece, there was a famous oracle at Ephesus, and all the Greek states, dudes and dudesses, would go and get counsel and wisdom. And really above on the gates at the entrance was a little slogan that said, basically, know thyself. And I think this is a big part of knowing yourself, is just trusting it. You know, I'm not really interested in jumping out of an airplane. I'm pretty sure I could do it if I really was put my mind to it, but there's other things that are more exciting. You know, coming back to my own dharma or creative calling, these are the things that are more aligned with me. Coming right back to the start is when I'm present, I can really, I get a sense of the journey, of the road, of the progress, of the, what's the next thing? What are the beacons on the horizon that are calling me? And the difference, like you said, so beautifully, the difference between a mind-based, I should do this, versus a heart-body, wisdom-based, yes, I'm excited but also nervous about this. It's like night and day. But again, you know, I've only really known that, I'm getting a sense of that through a practice of consciously every day trying to be more present, trying to be more mindful, and being in my senses, being more filled with presence, and getting to know that sense of this is right, no, this is a big no.
And I think it's that was beautifully said, and I think like with your calling, you're knowing what to do. You're like I spent so long like writing down and trying to figure out and trying to think about like really what is it that I want to do, and I'd never figured it out. And like I remember someone said this thing of like your mind tells you see a chocolate cake and your mind tells you eat that looks good, and so you eat it, and that's quite nice, and then your mind tells you stupid bitch, why did you eat that? And that for me is just a beautiful summation of like how nonsensical your mind is in so many ways, and how like to be really present and to know what you want is amazing. And I think like I've heard that so many times, and I've translated that into let's figure out what I want, and it's just this big barrier in the way, because you can't figure it out, because the chocolate cake thing, you'll figure out one thing, but then that's not good enough, and then what about that? And but I think again it's a practice thing, because like we're so used to relying on our mind to figure it out, rather than just being present with right now and seeing what feels right. And I think we're very much not within a culture or a society where that's promoted. It's kind of like we must figure everything out.
What are you going to do with your life?
And what a disaster that is to young kids, because like you know, like Like, I thought I wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Right.
And I went to university and studied neuroscience. After 3 months, I was like, why am I here? And I was like, that's it. Okay, I like this, I like that. I want to be a nutritionist. Went to uni again, did nutrition. And I was like, no, this isn't it. I knew from the age of 15 that I wanted to work in a gym and to coach people. But I was told that that's not good enough. You're better than that. I then interpreted that and thought, and it's like, we never listen to that feeling because we're full to the brim of expectations, ideas, what else it should be like, and it's exhausting. Like, think of that chocolate cake example. Like, you can literally never win, ever, because you do it and then there's always something else, there's always something wrong with it. I remember I read a book when I was about maybe 15, and it's by Mark Manson.
The Subtle Art?
Yes, that one. And there was something in it, and it really stuck with me since that age. And it was like, there was a line, it was something like, no matter what, you'll always have problems. And I don't know why that really lit a light bulb in my head. Because I was like, because I always thought that we're working towards a problem-free life. And that everything I'm doing, everything we do in society is getting to that place of having no problems. And it was almost like this, like, oh.
Damn it.
And it kind of had this, instead of this like background feeling of like, well, what's the point? Like, if we're working towards having no problems, having this perfectly happy life where you have all these things, but you still have problems, like, really, what is the point? And you can't figure that out in your head. But I'm finding a lot of point in being present because it's free of all of that.
You see where that comes from? The whole heaven is later. There's a point in your life where it will be heavenly, problem free. And that's the idea that it was so bought into, or been so, the fairy tale that we've been told so often, and it's just not true. Life is going to life us, And the fact is, for me, that's one of the reasons I'm on a spiritual, this inner journey, is because I realise now that problems with a capital P and suffering are my own creation. It's my reaction to the circumstances, it's my reaction to the traffic, it's my reaction to my wife or kids, it's my reaction to the thing that creates the problem. And I never saw that before. I thought I'd get to a point where life would just be easy, open roads, sailing along, undisturbed, no potholes, and it's just not the case. But when through this prayer, and my ascension teacher, one of the first things he said to me is like, I really want you to know that you create peace or pain. And I was like, no, bullshit. There's stuff that happens that is just painful. But he was right. Simply because it's how I react, how I respond, it's my resistance, it's my expectations, it's how I think about these things that create the problem. And it's a funny old thing. Life is still going to life me, but I see I create the problem, which is beautiful because I can uncreate a problem.
You have power.
Yeah. But I never had that, something you said earlier, the realization that it's my choice. That what I focus on grows. That I can choose to be wrapped up in my head and worried about the past or the future. I never saw that. I never saw I could choose to be present. It was something almost that was done to me. And so I think the practice of being present has shown me so clearly that it really is a choice. But that whole heaven is some other later moment, problem-free existence is just over the horizon. I don't think it's going to happen unless you work out that how you create it, which is a bit of a problem for many people, because geez, that's a big responsibility. It's a big gulp when you go, oh, this is up to me.
It's a lot to. It feels quite personal to take that because it's easier to.
Oh.
That.
Yeah.
That's why. Change that, and then that's fine.
And then you don't have to do anything about it.
I think like what you said there, a huge thing I'm realising is like a lot of that, like your reaction to situations, like when you become aware of the idea that that peace or pain thing and the choice thing, like, okay, it's my reactions to the traffic, it's my my judgment of this that causes all the suffering.
Yeah.
Like, I remember reading about that probably like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, oh, that's, I think it was, she's called Katie Byron, or Byron Katie? Byron Katie. Her name is backwards.
I know.
I think it was her book, all about how our thoughts about things create problems. And that was like very interesting. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then what I tried to do was to try and stop thinking how I thought, or to try and stop having judgments.
Yeah.
So what it resulted in was, okay, I'm at the traffic, and my mind's like, this is so annoying, I have places to be, why? And then I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this, why am I judging? I should be at peace with this. And that's kind of what the last, like, Until I Learned to Ascend was like, because it was like, I knew there was another way, but it was brute force. And it was like, you know, somebody's really bothering me, and I feel bothered, and I'm having judgments about them, and then it's, I shouldn't be having that, and judgment of myself. And that for me has been a life-changing thing, of realising that judging myself for the way I feel like causes all of the problems, and that I don't need to almost headbutt that. I don't need to, okay, there's a negative judgment, let's bring in a, you know, it's just, because again, it's a chocolate cake thing, you're just gonna be like that. And if you can go above the headbutting and to just see it, you've got so much less work to do. Because, like, I remember Byron Katie's stuff, I think, is fantastic, but she has, have you read her book?
No, I know of it.
Oh, right. Well, she has this thing called The Work, and basically you, like a thought or a belief or a judgment you have, you write it down, and then it's, is this true? Can you absolutely know this is true? And you basically have to, like, flip the thought on its head, and you have to do a lot of stuff with
do
the
the
thought.
opposite,
And wow, I spent so much time doing all of that, and like I was like, right, it was quite helpful. I did one, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the next time it came up, I was like, I know you, I've got another way to think about you. And then it was like, but there's endless thoughts. And I've got this notebook of like this many bits of paper of just all of the work. And I remember just thinking, like, when does this end? Like, my brain gives me so many new thoughts. And that was exhausting. And again, there's purpose to that, but for me to be able to just be present, and to me what presence means is lacking judgment. Like, if I feel sad, I feel sad, and that's okay. It's not a why should I shouldn't, or or you know, if I feel bothered by the traffic, it's interesting. Let myself feel bothered, and then it goes, rather than fighting it. And it's that fight. I think I can't remember what Ascension teacher, but someone said, like, we often stand there with our fists, like, up to our thoughts, like, right, I'm ready for you. And it comes back with its fists, it punches you around the head. If we just put our fists down, there's no fight.
No fight.
But we're so ready for a fight. And I think because we're taught, and we're, whatever reason, that going again. And forcefulness, fighting, it's all in the same category. And that's exhausting. That's
knackering,
absolutely.
Someone once described it as like, you know, you're in the streets of London at rush hour. You know, you can get your elbows out and punch people out the way, which is one way of making your way from A to B against the flow of these just many people. Or you can just dodge and weave. You know, and dodging and weaving and dancing is so much easier. Different attitude, different results, so much quicker. But it's come back that I need to get, this is a problem. My mind is a problem, this judgment is a problem. I need to get rid of it, and then on the other side of that is happiness. As opposed to this general field of happiness, contentment, acceptance, in which a judgment may arise, and then very quickly, if you let it, will just drop away. You don't have to do anything with it, it just runs out of steam. It just goes, oh, okay, you're not listening. Boom, it dies. And that's what interesting, because a few of the phrases that I picked up from Byron Katie is don't argue with reality, because you're going to lose 100% of the time. And really, when there's a judgment there, that's your reality. It's a fact. It's like there you go. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's all you're seeing is perhaps history. The fact that every time you're in this situation, you've had a similar reaction or expectation, and bush comes up as judgment. And that's reality. So accept reality. There it is. And in that field of acceptance, it just goes and dies. You know, I'm not. I haven't read any of her books, but I've seen a few of her videos who live, and she'll set an example of the work, and it's fascinating because when someone with her, she's obviously got a presence, very still lady, very mindful, and when she's face to face with someone saying, okay, what's the opposite? It's not so much about the work or the words, the questions. I mean, that scrambles, that keeps the mind occupied on some level, but it's really, hey, there's such a bigger field here. This moment is so much more than any judgment. And I think that is perhaps the unspoken or the unacknowledged transmission, if you like, of what she's doing. And but I know what you mean. You could do, I feel I could do workbooks of the work and not get very little, you know. And yet, sometimes, you know, it's so nice to name something. Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's a judgment. Oh, I'm just feeling anxious. Oh, I'm afraid. What am I afraid about? Oh, cool. Do you know, it's almost like when you see it or put it down paper, you can do something with it, or you can, it's understandable. When it's in our heads, it's like this amorphous cloud of, I just feel blah, and I need to change it because I'm feeling yuck. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's definitely there's, like, I find there's power in labeling sometimes, like you said, because it distances a little bit, but other times there's disempowerment from that of labeling and analysing. Lost down here.
It's facts versus stories.
Yes, and I think what you were saying there as well about you know, like when you said, oh, there's a judgment, that's my reality. I think that's so important in the sense of like just 100% radical honesty.
Yeah.
Because, and like something that I've been really come to realise recently is like you literally can't deny your experience of your life.
No.
Like your thoughts, your judgments, all of this. There's A, no point trying to change it because you can't, but B, there's no point trying to almost pretend that it's not there.
Yeah.
In the sense of like I think that a big thing with the spiritual path is the whole kind of, you know, my idea was like, okay, that I should love everything and everybody, and you know, that, I'm sure that's a place where you end up, but that there is no judgments of anything or anybody. And all that meant that was, whenever I did have that, it's then an argument in my mind again.
Yeah.
Whereas something I've been massively realising recently of like, okay, if I'm having a judgment or if I just feel a bit sad, it just goes.
It does.
If you don't put your fists up, and if you don't try and move it, or if you don't, and I think you can't deny the fact that that's happening. Like that's your reality, and how freeing it actually is to just be okay with your reality, rather than having expectations of, well, I shouldn't feel like that, I should feel like this, and like, to me that's where all my stress is. That's where all my possible suffering is just any form of judgment of whatever I'm experiencing right now. I shouldn't be. Stress.
That's a big thing, isn't it? Should.
It's huge.
I should be like this, I should be like that.
Uh-huh.
But my little moment of walking to the bakery where there was no shoulds, it was just like, I feel so good. I feel so fine in my own skin. You know, just no should. Easy peasy. But yeah. No, it's so good talking to you because it's I got to do the school run soon.
Yeah, I just need to eat lunch.
Lunch. But it's so good seeing someone. I mean, I know you've been involved in personal development so for a long time. Just seeing all your discoveries and reading them, and you know, seeing some of your articles in the Ultrarunner magazine. We'll mention our sponsors. but just seeing it's possible for anyone who prioritizes it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like we've been talking about, A, not many people prioritize it, and B, you know, there's a host of reasons for that. But when people do, they just make, you know, big discoveries about their own life and who they are and their calling and the way they do things and their shoulds and the voices in their head and all that stuff. I think it's so cool. You know, it doesn't take a long time to make a better life.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's it's fun.
I think it's, you know, that priority thing, because you can look at other people like you're in a shine monk and think, well, it's easy for him, you know.
Yeah.
That already you've lost, because you've lost all of your power.
Yeah.
And it's almost like when you actually do it, it works.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
Yeah. You just have to do it. Yeah. Seems like a good place to stop.
I think so. Do we do an outro?
Don't know. What could we say?
Say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
See you next time.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Done.
Wow, we didn't go over 2 hours. That's a good start.